everybody. Melissa Killeleagh here. We're live in the studio at Finger Lakes One TV, and I'm coming at you right from my trip back from the Adirondacks. It's probably one of the most beautiful weekends that we had up in the Old Forge, Eagle Bay Inlet area. I was up there for the weekend with my mom and my son, and it was absolutely wonderful. So today was a little bit of a stretch. There was some confusion over the date, and I had written down last week. So I decided, you know what, we'll just make it happen, because one thing I've learned in life is that 80% of success is just showing up, right? So here I am. We drove straight, threw on some lipstick, and I will say that my wardrobe, Jim, is definitely inspired by our friend Harold Weber, for sure, a.k.a. the dog. He always tells me, don't be fancy, show up and be you. So for those of you who don't know me, Jim, you want to comment on that?
No, you look great.
Am I doing okay over here?
You look great. I don't know if I would take fashion advice from Harold Weber, though.
Yeah, I might want to think about that. But I do enjoy him, and he's such a great guy. And he just reminds us to keep it real, right? Like, that's the big thing. So for those of you who don't know me and are watching the show, I am a mother to a beautiful 16-month-old baby boy, Jack. He is the love of my life, greatest gift ever, and he's also my greatest teacher, that's for sure. I'm also a social marketing professional. I'm a coach. I'm a yogi, an Inner Light practitioner, for those of you who know Inner Light and Beth Lynch in the area. And basically, at the end of the day, I really just love meeting and connecting with people, sharing stories, really working with people in any way that I can be of service as they are on their path and I'm on mine to pursue our passions and become the best version of ourselves. So a little bit about my details really quick. I know those are always helpful. I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York, City Honors alumni. There was some kind of meme on social media recently that was put up by a former classmate, Bill Burton, where he said it was something about like left, right, and centaur, and centaur was our mascot. So that's me. And I also went to Ithaca College for my undergraduate degree. I spent some time down there. It was beautiful. I literally think I decided to go to school there because I was in love with the Finger Lakes. It took one trip, and my heart was here. That's it. I took some time out in the Bay Area after that. I pursued AmeriCorps, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's a domestic kind of Peace Corps program. That was really great. I worked at San Francisco State University, met a lot of wonderful people, ran a citywide after-school tutorial program for underserved youth, and it was really just a brilliant program. Had a lot of fun with that, but also learned a lot and came back to the area to do my graduate work at Binghamton University. And I feel like I kind of took a pilgrimage around Cayuga Lake, but eventually settled here in this beautiful town of Seneca Falls, which is where I met Jim Sinacropi, and the idea for this podcast was born. So,
what do you like the most about living in Seneca Falls?
I would have to say the people. The community is definitely, it's an interesting one for sure.
Different than other places you've lived?
I think there's just this, there's this sort of like passion here for the community. And everybody seems to express it differently, but a lot of people can come together on common ground over like just bringing our place to, the next level. Mm-hmm. I think Seneca Falls deserves and needs to be on the map as like a current player in the conversation of women's rights, since it's the birthplace here. But it's a conversation that's still going on. And I know, Jim, you've talked about this before. I'd love to be part of that.
Well, this weekend was Induction weekend, and they did a little bit more than usual than just the ceremony. They had a panel discussion on Sunday that was really interesting, featuring 4 of the inductees, and that video is on Finger Lakes One in its full entirety, and I'd recommend anybody watching that. And it was nice to hear all the inductees speak about Seneca Falls as well, and how it's a special place and how beautiful it is. So yeah, I agree with you completely. I think there is something different about this place. I'm biased. I was born here, and I never wanted to leave permanently. I went away to school, but I always wanted to live here and raise my family here.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. There's definitely something special about Seneca Falls. Well, as they say, the season's coming. It is a wonderful life. So time is on us. Yeah. And, the caliber of people that I have met in my time here and along my journey is what really inspires me to keep going with the show. It's almost like getting out there and just discovering people and their stories. And one of the ones we're going to share with you guys here today, we're starting out with a story of a man who is making a difference in the world. So a couple weekends ago, we bumped into this man, Adam Jablonski, at an event held by the Skinny Atlas chapter of Zonta Club. It was held at the Welch Allen Lodge, and it was a fundraising event for a birthing center in Kenya. I'm so absolutely impressed, not only with the Zonta Club, but the work that Adam is doing with Building Futures, that I wanted to bring that story here to you today. So we're going to go ahead and share that now. All right. Hi, everybody. We're here today for the segment of the Melissa Killeleagh Show on men who make a difference in this world. And we're here today with Adam. And do you say Jablonski or Jablonski, Adam?
It is Jablonski, yes. Okay. Hard J, yeah.
All right. Fantastic. So my one of my family surnames is Pinkowski, so I'm very familiar with all of the names.
Right.
So, yeah. So I had a feeling that was being said wrong when I first met you. However, really, for everyone who's watching, Adam and I are really just meeting truly for the first time right now. We met at a function and shook hands. It was a brunch that was put on by the Zonta Club of Skinny Atlas, which I'll share a little bit more with you about that later. But the reason why I wanted to have Adam onto the show is because he is doing some amazing work with an organization called Building Futures. And so, Adam, I would love to just take this time to get to know you, your background, your experience, and what this organization is all about.
Wow. I'll put it in I'll not water it down, but make it as concise as possible, because this was not something I was looking to do. I certainly wasn't anticipating any type of work like this. I've wanted to go to Africa and Kenya in particular since I was a small boy. I wanted to be a zoologist from the time I was about 6. Turned into paleontology. Next thing I know, I'm a beer distributorship, running a beer distributorship in Rochester, New York. So incredibly unlikely turn. From there, we were actually, my wife and I were both asked to be part of another organization that had just formed. And within that organization, I met a man by the name of Jim Nowak, another Polish guy, and I'll get back to that in a second. But he was probably one of the most charismatic people I have ever met, and we were very much like-minded. A month after I met him, I was in Kenya with him, and working on behalf of this other organization. It didn't take long before we realized that we just had a different way of how to present ourselves and how to do things. We really wanted to stay focused. We really wanted to watch the funds and the money that people invested in our organization. And because of that, it only took a year before we formed our own organization. We both left and formed Building Futures. It's funny, just Jim again, being Polish. He suggested when we were trying to come up with a name, he said, we should call it Two Polish Guys Who Are Trying to Change the World. And I said, I didn't think that would be a very good idea because nobody would give us money. Yeah, when you're battling for those kinds of things, the name is kind of important. So we joked about it a little bit, but we settled on Building Futures, and it's been quite a ride ever since. Jim was killed in a car accident several years ago in Kenya, coming back from Mount Kenya. And it was a huge hole that was left in our organization and our hearts. He was a very, very dear friend of ours. But, I have no doubt that he is laughing and watching as we fumble our way through this. We fumbled our way through it with him. We continue to fumble our way through it without him. But we know that he's watching over us as we do all these things. I have no doubt that he is instrumental on putting these people in front of us whose paths we cross, who bring us to different places and show us where to go next.
Yes. So, and that's how we connected.
Right.
So I went to a meeting for the Zonta Club of Skinny Atlas little over a month ago. And I had been invited to attend a brunch at the Welch Allen Lodge, which is a beautiful location in Skinny Atlas, to celebrate and raise funds for the final leg of putting together the birthing center in Kenya that Building Futures is working on. And this is how our paths crossed. And on the morning of the brunch, as Adam stood up and, gave his remarks and discussion about the birthing center and the other projects being placed on your path, that's when it really struck me how incredible it is to be open to those things, right? To not have this very rigid, preconceived notion about where you're headed next. And in fact, one of the best, I'm going to digress for a second because someone asked me this the other day. Someone said, what is some of the best advice you've ever received in your life? And I said, without a doubt, my first real professional job out of college, I worked for an organization called the Learning Web. And it was taking kids anywhere from 12 to 21 even, to learn about career paths, like potential career paths, and to get apprenticeships and shadowing and all that kind of stuff. And my boss said to me, Melissa, you need to learn how to build in the spaces in between appointments and engagements so that you can make room for the unexpected, right? What she was really trying to get at is my inability to be chronologically intact. Right? And I continue to improve upon that. But if something would come up, I would always perceive that it was, the thing, the detour along the way, that it was that, the fault of that thing, right? Instead of taking ownership for the fact that I could just build my life a little differently. And I definitely began after that to really heed her advice. And I feel like that is such an integral message to the story that you told of the work that you're doing right now. So I would love if you could share with our viewers and our listeners what that birthing center has been all about for you and some of the projects that have sort of stepped in front of you during that journey.
Certainly. Now, originally, when we first formed, we were primarily concerned with children, young girls especially, making sure that they were educated, had opportunities that their counterparts did, both in terms of boys versus girls, as well as ensuring that they had a safe place to learn. Most of the schools that we either built or helped rebuild were high-performing schools in deplorable conditions. Mud and dung, classrooms that were falling apart due to rain. You could walk right out a wall because it was so worn and terrible. So we took these classrooms and rebuilt them. And in rebuilding them, we usually doubled the school in size because now you have a bright, shiny school with wonderful teachers that a larger community wants to participate in. So enrollment would always go up. That got coupled with providing scholarships because although elementary school in Kenya is paid for by the government, high school is not. College is not. They'll help you with college, but high school, they pretty much leave you to yourself. So just back to that, that rigid comment that you made before, providing scholarships for girls, rigid, easy. You got to track it, but it's you can get the instant gratification, but we find that we just help so many more people and give so many more opportunities by doing some of the other things that we do now. We never ever thought about getting involved with the government and starting to concern ourselves with the health and welfare aspect of education. And that was the impetus that brought us into this, because we started with an elementary school. There was no way that these subsistence farmers that in the community that we served could afford a boarding day school for high school, as most of the schools in Kenya are. So we built a day school. Let's keep this thing going. We built the day school. It's incredibly successful now. The government came in and built them a science lab last year. So that school is doing very well. And as we're watching the kids walk to school, we realize that they're sick. How can they be sick and go to school? We don't want those kinds of things to interfere. They're 5 miles from the closest hospital. Let's build a dispensary so at least they can get medicine. It did not take long before a dispensary/drugstore turned into a clinic, almost full-blown hospital. Wow. And during a visit a couple of years ago, I just happened to be stopping in when all of these marvelous, unintended, unanticipated consequences happen with each of these kinds of structures. We met some people from Empath, which is another non-for-profit, does a lot of work in Africa. They're using that facility, that Mbakaromo clinic, as a site to study AIDS and to help educate the public and to help provide treatments and maintain the health and welfare of AIDS patients in the area. I also met someone from Dartmouth who happened to be visiting there who wanted to use the site to study mosquitoes and malaria and the effects on young children and how they can control it. So they now have an office there as well. So, all of these things, we've got all these other organizations that are coming in and recognizing this as just an opportunity to not only help them, but to help the people in the surrounding communities. So, the health, this clinic, this dispensary, it was just, again, a dispensary idea until a woman by the name of Marilyn Dollinger was tossed in front of me. She happened to be the wife of my attorney, who I had never known, never met her, but I was talking with my attorney and said, I've got to go to Kenya next week. If you call me, I'm going to be out of the country for a few weeks. He said, what are you doing in Kenya? And why is this the only time I'm hearing about it? I said, well, this is what we do. I've been doing it for 8 or 9 years now. He said, we've got to get you together with my wife because she happens to be the associate dean of the Wegman School of Nursing at St. John Fisher College, and she's trying to bring nurses over. So, 6-7 months later, Jim and I are there with 24 juniors and seniors and faculty members from the Wegman School of Nursing at St. John Fisher. And at that point, we knew we can't just do a little dispensary. This has to, we may as well provide for everybody here. Medication is great, but to be able to see a doctor, to be able to, get medication, provide inoculations for your infants, prenatal care, postnatal care, the whole ball of wax. It was just something that, again, we got called to do once we got that nursing school put in our path. It was soon after that a friend of ours who we've known all along, who is a Maasai guide. He's a member of the Maasai tribe living in southern Kenya, who he said, perhaps one day you can come and help with some of the things that my people have issues with. We should certainly. We've been working in Nyanza now for a little over 10 years, primarily with the Luo tribe up against Lake Victoria in the west. Isaac is down in the south at Masai Mara in the lowlands where the game drives are. And the opportunity said, okay, we're almost finished here. Let's start looking down at Masai Mara. Enter Vivian Cunningham, who you also know, who crossed paths with you. So she came to us. We got together shortly thereafter. Again, she's also one of the faculty members at the Wegman School of Nursing at St. John Fisher College here locally. And beautiful. We got together and started talking about the different experiences that we have in Kenya. And she said, you know what, I think I have an idea of what might be of most benefit to the people in this region. And I said, well, go ahead and tell me, what's that? We'd like to do something to help Isaac's, family, clan, extended family, tribe as a whole. And she said, a birthing center would be wonderful. The current situation, the local chief does not approve of the clinic, so people aren't really utilizing it. So The maternity, for the most part, in that current standing facility is more of a closet. The equipment's there, nobody's utilizing it. And in that instance, what happens is, because they don't use that, they give birth in their mud and dung homes. The homes are built by the women. All the women build the Maasai homes. They are small, again, mud and dung huts that are about 5 feet high, if you're lucky. Usually they're not even that tall. Small, dark, certainly not sterile, not the most safe place for a child to come into the world. And this was just an absolute perfect opportunity. And yeah, it was a pull at our heartstrings, certainly, to be able to do something like this. So that's what put us in motion to start working on this current project.
I love it. It was so great, as I mentioned before, to hear your story, to connect with your emotional connection to the work, to see your wife and your daughter up in front of the room, also just sharing their perspectives, pictures from your trips, knowing that your family has been involved in every step of the journey. What would you say, Adam, is like, if you could sum it up just in one sentence, what inspires you the most to continue doing the work?
It's those people that are put in front of me. Or my wife, or my daughters, or our son. It's those things that drive us. We finish a project. We don't have 5 or 6 projects envisioned for 6 or 7 years down the line. We concentrate on one thing at a time. There are other things that we do on the side to help, kind of embolden the communities here that want to do something but can't go to Kenya or can't afford to donate funds. So we get together and we sew dresses for young girls. We make reusable sanitary pads for girls. We take kits over for sewing. We do small things like that just have a huge effect. So it's that little thing. It's the people that are here that want to help so badly, don't always necessarily know how. And I don't even want to say that it's easy to say, here's $10, because I can't ask for money. I'm horrible at it, so I don't. However, it's always provided for. It always comes in. That just completely blows my mind. I don't know how it happens. I'll say I don't know why, but it happens because this is what we're supposed to be doing. The thing that drives me is something that our co-founder Jim said before he passes. If you can do something, do it. It was that simple. So we continue to. And when we don't know what to do, something always tells us. Always.
Yeah. It's interesting because I know one of the things that I have struggled with in the past is this whole idea of paralysis by analysis. Like, you spend too much time thinking about it. And so those words are so true. Like, if you can do it, do it. Right? Yeah. Take action.
Yeah. And again, I never expected to be, flying 20 hours, 24 hours to go to a third world country where I can't drink the water and I'm sleeping on the floor or I'm sleeping on a hard mattress and there's noises everywhere and, I'm going to get sick. And sure, hey, why don't I bring my kids over too? And my wife. Sure, bring them all into this. It has been one of the most influential things that I could ever do, with my wife as well, to do for our children. It is life-changing. I would defy anyone to come over there and, just to be with us and to see some of the things that we see. And again, you mentioned it before, my wife's perspective is different than mine, which is different than my daughter's or my son's or my other daughters. And all of those things make this work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
And when you're talking about bringing people over there, you are heading to Kenya in October, correct? For the
November. We're pushing it back to the beginning of November. There's been some things with the election over there. it got cast out, so they have to run a new one. It's supposed to be done by the end of October, so hopefully things will continue to be peaceful over there. I don't anticipate any problems right now. So, yeah, we'll be over there within the first 2 weeks in November.
Excellent. And how can people help right now? What sorts of things could people do? I mean, I'm going to be sharing the website, the mission of your organization, all of those great things, but how can they get involved? Contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a Facebook page. We have a website. I've actually got a phone number and an email. So yeah, there's all kinds of things that we can do locally. In all honesty, you can even do them if you're not locally. Currently, my wife and some of her friends were putting together pillowcase dress kits, whereby, these are for older girls. So it's a T-shirt that we attach a pillowcase to. And despite what it sounds like, they're actually beautiful. We've got a friend who makes pillowcases, again, just happened to be in there looking at material, a little thrift shop in our village here, a Fairport, place called Bits and Pieces. We just happened to be in there looking to pick up material inexpensively. And my wife said, "Oh my gosh, look at these pillowcases somebody made. These are gorgeous." Little woman pokes her head out from behind the corner. "Oh, I made them. Oh my gosh, this is what we're going to do with them." She said, "If you buy the material, I'll make all the pillowcases you need."
Wow.
So yeah, it's, again, those kinds of things, they just keep happening. It's amazing. There is no doubt that we are blessed. We're just trying to share it with as many people as we can at this point. So those kits are something that we're putting together now. And yeah, if you want to help us make some pillowcase dresses for what will ostensibly end up going to the rescue center, to the young girls there, who arrive with nothing but the clothes on their back. There's opportunities there. There are, I hate to say, this might be the first time I've ever said, yes, you can donate. Wow, it's uncomfortable to even think about it. But, certainly the donations, we can't do what we do without them. So they're an absolute necessity. And although, I haven't had to ask in the past, you asked first. So I guess I'm off the hook in that respect. But certainly monetary donations are a huge help. In all honesty, prayers, thoughts, just listening to our story, checking out the website, looking at my blog. I try to make you feel as though you're there with us because, the thoughts and prayers are the things that sustain us while we're over there. They really do mean a lot.
Okay. All right. So I'll share all of that information before and after the interview on our podcast. And, to sum up what I hear from you, when it comes to the things that inspire you, it's something that really connects to the message we're putting out there in the world, which is that synchronicity of people and places and needs coming together around common causes and making things happen, right? It's beautiful. So I thank you for the work that you do. And I look forward to sharing this message with many other people. And I also look forward to having you back sometime next year to hear about your adventures in November, along with continued projects and work that go on from there. So thank you again, Adam, for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. And
you're very welcome. Thanks so much for the opportunity. This is great. And I apologize for the opportunity. I'm just going to jump back for one more thing.
Absolutely.
What people can do is feed empathy. We often talk to elementary school children over here, and we just talk about Kenya and the kids that are over there that are just like them, but they don't have iPods and they don't have iPhones. They don't have, video games and those kinds of things. But you know what? They're happy and they're wonderful, and they have different needs than what the children here are. And they are more often than not the most responsive to it. So feed into that empathy. If you're a young adult in high school and you're watching this podcast and you're trying to think, what can I do? You know what? The next time someone looks lost in the hallway, just go up and say hi and ask if you can help them. Those kinds of things have huge effects down the line, huge effects. The people we help are strangers. By the time we're done, they're members of our family. That kind of connection, person-to-person connection, especially in today's age when people are always on their phones, those physical connections, looking in someone else's eyes when you're talking to them, those things make a difference. And they can make a difference everywhere. But again, thank you.
Yeah, no, and thank you for that message because everyone needs to hear it. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and checking out today's segment on men who make a difference in our world. And stay tuned because Adam will definitely be back. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that interview with Adam Jablonski, Building Futures Incorporated. You can go check out their website. It's so amazing to know that there are people like Adam all over, but especially right here in our area, who are doing this brilliant work that needs to be done out in the world, right? And I love how we wrapped up with ideas of like how you can be helpful, how you can be of service, even when you might not have the money to throw at a particular cause. We have our time, we have our own sense of purpose and connection to one another. So that was really helpful. Thinking back to the beginning of the show, I was talking about how I came here right from the Adirondacks, and 80% of success is showing up, right? People quote that a lot, and I did too. But here's what I'm here to tell you. It's not just showing up, it's how you show up. So Adam talked about that a little bit throughout his interview, throughout the time that we were talking together. And it starts with things as simple as the first impression that we make on one another. And sometimes things happen, and you can't help it. You have to go back and connect with someone, like for the people who've met me in the grocery store when I, was a new mom and falling apart and had no idea what I was doing. I have had those moments. But the reality is this. When you think about how you show up, think about everything from what you're wearing to who you're with to how you engage other people. Do you look people in the eye? Do you shake their hand? Do you make them feel welcome? Do you stand with your back to people? All of these things have to do with how we show up with one another, for one another, in one another's lives, right? So, I think, Jim, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's something like people's first impressions are made within 60 seconds or 30 seconds within meeting somebody.
Yeah, I've heard that for sure.
Yeah. So what are some of the things you notice about people when you first meet them? Because obviously you have an eye for these kinds of things. You're in front of people all the time.
Confidence, trust, how trustworthy someone is. Mm-hmm. I kind of get a feel for that right away. Mm-hmm. And, I believe that perception becomes reality. Mm-hmm. So if you act like what you want to be or want to be perceived as, so a great example is just a job interview that you might feel, underqualified for. If you go in feeling underqualified, then that's the type of perception that the interviewer is going to have. So you almost have to psych yourself up there. It's almost like acting sometimes, I think. Yeah. To prepare yourself for a situation like that. But, in terms of showing up, you have to show up to things that make you uncomfortable. And one way to go about doing that rather than just not showing up is, and it's just in general terms we're talking here, mm-hmm. is first of all, showing up, you have a chance to seize an opportunity. And it might not even be the opportunity that you think it would be. Right. Could be something completely different. But also, even when you show up and fail, in terms of a failure, you've learned something mm-hmm. that will prepare you for the next time. And I read the book Zen Golf 8 times. I'm a golfer. And Zen Golf, some Buddhist principles applied to golf. Yeah. But really, that book has helped me in more facets of life than just golf. And golf's a great metaphor for life. Like a round of 18 holes, there's always highs and lows. sometimes amazing things happen, sometimes terrible things happen, in terms of your golf score or your shots you hit. And I used to get real angry when I was younger, when I didn't play well and when I hit bad shots and really frustrated.
Right.
But it's all part of golf and part of life, so now, even when I play terrible, I understand that that's part of it, part of the deal you sign up for. Nobody, including the best golfers in the world on the PGA Tour, play good all the time.
Right.
So really it becomes about how well can you play when you're struggling, and how well can you play when you're have your A game and you're playing good. Can you maximize that? So, but it's all part of, like I said, it's all part of showing up, despite how uncomfortable it might make you feel. And so that was one thing about that interview that was pretty interesting, because a lot of people will shy away from opportunities because it's an uncomfortable situation, right, and you don't advance yourself or prepare yourself for the future if that's the attitude that you take.
Right. Absolutely. Such a great metaphor for life. That came out of nowhere.
Golf?
I love your golf analogy. Yeah. Showing up today could have been uncomfortable for me. I knew that the guest that I had planned couldn't make it in today live in the studio. So it was going to be hanging out, just me and you. But you know what? I like hanging out with you.
Sure.
We can shoot the breeze.
And even showing up to do the show initially when you weren't sure if you could host a show, it was something that was so foreign. But if you think about, what have we had now? A dozen episodes?
Yeah. We'll be on our 12th next month. Yeah.
And so the people that I've met because you decided to do a show, and also the exposure that some other people who watch your show have gotten, like, all the benefit of all that wouldn't even exist if you had said, no, I'm not doing this, it's too scary. Yeah.
So you had no idea that you possibly could do this, but that's like the most brilliant segue to this next segment, right? So in fact, our next segment is with Johanna Povlock. And so this twofold here is how it's connected to what we were just talking about. Number one, you have no idea how every daily decision that you make is going to impact another human being. So like you said, Jim, showing up for the first time I decided to do this podcast, one of my colleagues and close friends was secretly on the sidelines saying, like, how dare she? Like, what does she think she has to say? What does she have, that I don't have to share the world? But what was happening is she was having this sort of challenge within herself of having transitioned from a brilliant career in occupational therapy to being a stay-at-home mom and working her business from home, which can be very isolating. And she definitely craved that connection and saw what I was doing. And she said to me later on, thank you so much for deciding to do that, because it gave me the courage and the wherewithal to say, you know what, I can do this thing I want to do too, which is the Passion Expansion Project. And that's what she's going to be sharing with us in just a minute. Now, I have Johanna on because I want her to inspire and share this with other people. But this also ties back to what I was saying before, that it's not just about showing up, it's about how you show up, right? So part of showing up for this show is my passion to share stories, my passion to connect with people, my passion to get better news out there in the world, to let people know that people are doing things out there that are absolutely inspiring. The world is not going in the wrong direction. It's going in absolutely the right direction. Are you looking for the things to support that idea? And so what's so great about Johanna is she's actually helping people to generate that passion, to figure out what lights them up inside, to figure out how to fuel their own lives. So I'm going to turn it over to the interview I did with her last week. This is a quick one, you guys, but Johanna will definitely be on this show. If you haven't seen the episode with Alexis Pierce, Alexis is someone who has deeply influenced both myself and Johanna and helped us to, kind of give birth to these ideas of our own. So here she is, Johanna Povlock, founder of the Passion Expansion Project.
All right, everybody, we're here today for our Melissa Killeleagh Show. This is Johanna Povlock, who is a colleague and friend. We met through our business together in Arbonne International, fellow network marketing professional. But we're not here today to talk to you about that. We're here to talk to you today about an amazing project that Johanna's unveiled over the last few months called the Passion Expansion Project. And I'm super excited. Johanna, I would love it if you just share a little bit about what it is that you're doing these days.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a real honor. And the Passion Expansion Project really started with me going through this whole journey of taking my life from its current reality trap feeling, that kind of being on the wheel of everything looks the same, there's no change, to really expanding my joy and my clarity and my purpose day to day, kind of feeling in the moment always. So that's really where it started from. And it's been an amazing trip ever since. So I figured if it worked for me, it could work for other people too, because we're all kind of the same, right?
I love it. I love it. And I know that the work was inspired by some work that you were doing with a mutual colleague and friend, Alexis Pierce.
Mm-hmm.
You were working with her for over a year now, right? In a mastermind group. And I had her on the show last year in the fall. So tell me a little bit, because I'd love to have her back too at some point soon, but tell me a little bit about how the work together influenced this project sort of being born.
Well, I'm a huge fan of mastermind types of groups. I feel like support is so important when you're going through steps of growth and self-discovery and things like that. I mean, you could do it on your own, but to have a group that's seeing the other things on the outlying sides of you is so crucial to showing you kind of where your blind spots are. So that's really what that group did, was not only just show you where your blind spots are and encourage you to continue on the path that you wanted to be on, but also challenging you at each step of the way. And really, I mean, Alexis was a fantastic facilitator of that process of just becoming a better you. And not that I was broken, not that I was by any means, you know, not worthy or anything like that, but it was really this, but there's more. Right. But there's a deeper layer, but there's, you know, all that kind of thing. And then the support that comes with investigating those deeper layers and really bringing them out on a consistent basis.
Absolutely. And I think like part of this is the difference between working with a coach, right, and a facilitator and a guide versus like going to a traditional therapist or something like that, where like you're looking to fix something, right? Like really the idea was like, there's something more in here, right? There's something more, mm-hmm. and having the support and the guidance to kind of bring that out. Yeah. So what I'd really love to do is in the next couple of months, as you begin to unroll more of these layers of your own project, right? As the Passion Expansion Project literally expands, right? I'd love to have you come into the studio and do some exercises, right? Like take some of the material that you're using in some of your groups and walk through it with me, even with Jim in the studio. Jim Sinacropi owns Finger Lakes One. So that our viewers can really get an idea of what it is you're doing. Like, what is this concept, like passion expansion? How do I grow the passion inside of me? How do I take my life from like the humdrum, you know, like you said, the doldrum, every day is the same kind of feeling, to, you know, waking up every day, feeling vibrant, feeling alive, really feeling love and passionate about your life, right? So if I had no idea who you were and I said, you know, I've got 30 seconds, tell me what you could do for me if I work with you, what would you say? Are
you going to time me? I would would say I can help you figure out where that current reality trap of your life is right now and how to grow that deep, deep passion and connection into the authentic you that you want to be bringing out. And those are like selfie-helpy words, right? That's kind of like a lot of self-help language,
right,
that anyone who could read a book would figure out. But it really is where I feel that the passion expansion piece really shines, is the support in helping you do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could read a book that helps you to do that, but sometimes we get pulled back into that reality trap, and we need help to experience those things in a safe environment, but also to continue on the path.
Yeah.
A little bit of accountability. So that's what I think that the passion expansion really brings, is that is not only the support for this, like, this is it. That's what I want. I was like, this is it. Count me out. I don't want to play this game anymore. This is boring.
Yeah.
And there is so much more out there. I know there is. I just don't know how to get it. So that's what the passion expansion helps you to do, is to go out and get what you want, not what I want, not what the girl down the street wants or the guy down the street, but what you want to bring out in your life, and to create the accountability and the support around that.
Right. The accountability plus support equals you become a catalyst in their life to bring that out. Right. So you could read books and take time. We all know the formula, 10 pages a day. And like, you've read all these amazing books over the course of a year, but the reality is you can take that at a faster pace in something like this. So for all our viewers out there who are watching, who are listening, you can reach out to Johanna Povlock on Facebook.
Yes.
You can look up the Passion Expansion Project. You'll also get a link in the comments to the podcast if you want to go check out the work that she's doing. But I so appreciate you for all that you do. I can't wait to have you come into the studio and work through some things with us. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And girl, just keep that smile smiling so bright.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, everybody. So that's Johanna Povlock. She's such an amazing woman. So that was like a huge jump from, wondering like, well, what in the world is Melissa doing with this podcast, to, because I still don't know, by the way, to realizing that it was because she had a dream to birth in her own life. And so there she was, Passion Expansion Project. But it totally ties back to that whole concept that it's not just about showing up, it's about how you show up, and are you really living and loving your life. So beyond those first impressions, well, actually, I should say that's not even beyond the first impression, right? Because people can see that. People can see that when you are lit up about life, like when you really feel on fire for every day, people see that. And I'll tell you what, like, that's not to say that, like, when I talk about these things, it's not to say I don't have bad days. It's not to say that I don't show up with like my, 3 days of unwashed hair and my pants on backwards, because it happens. I'm a mom to a 16-month-old boy, but beyond that, I'm human, right? So things happen. But I still feel it. I still feel it in my belly that like I'm on this planet to make a difference, right? And so that's what keeps me going. So even through the craziest of times, like I'll have that smile on my face because I'm like, look, you got to go through it, right? Like we got to go through it. And just like Jim was talking about, it's even our failures are meant to be our lessons. It's meant to teach us how to do it better, right? So just, reach out to Johanna if you want, have a conversation with her, and, and ask yourself, like, are you really living and loving life? Because this could be someone who could really help you. And I am 100% confident that Johanna will be on the show shortly as a woman who is making the world a better place, right? She just has that fire inside of her. So switching gears a little bit, we're going to wrap up here, but we want to leave you with a little bit of your own ideas and inspiration. Jim and I are going to touch back on the induction in a minute, but before that, I want to just chat with you about how how I work on continuing to show up how I want to show up. Like what is it that drives me? And part of it is this daily activity I do, and I'm just going to be completely transparent and share it with you. So this notebook here is my journal. Every day I get up and I write out my goals and my values and my affirmations every day, right? And at night before I go to sleep, I write out my gratitude. I think I've talked about it on this show before. But how do I know whether or not I am showing up how I want to show up? It's by figuring out whether or not I'm living the truth of my own values, right? And so, at the base, you may have seen the tree. I talked about this on my Facebook Live. Right now I'm doing a campaign, by the way, on Facebook Live, my 40 Until 40 campaign. So I'll be 40 tomorrow. So it'll be my 40th day. So I talked about this. This is my my tree of values. And so, my tree is planted in two things, right? It's planted in courage, it's planted in commitment. So just like today, here's a great measure of, would I have called Jim up and said I'm not going to be there? No way, right? Because I'm committed to this program. I'm committed to bringing these stories to you. I'm committed to just being here, sharing this time. And courage is what allowed me to show up in my camp clothes and coming straight to you from the Adirondacks. Because I know there's no judgment here, right? But the roots of my tree are literally service and self-mastery, right? So getting really good with myself. That's what I call self-mastery, right? Getting good with my own energy. And how can I be of service to people, right? So that's a question I've been asking myself every day. The trunk of my tree is passion and purpose. My 4 limbs are fun, faith, family, freedom, right? So the freedom piece is huge. So about 3 years ago now, I left my full-time career in finance to get into social marketing full-time. So I've had my business for 10 years. And that is what has given me the freedom to live life on my terms, right? Give me time freedom. And I'll share that story another time. But faith, I have faith that we are walking along this journey and showing up exactly where we're meant to be as long as we're tuning in. So that's something that Adam talked about when we shared our time together is, he's showing up where his journey leads him. So he's literally not asking for what's the next project. It's just sort of unveiling itself as he walks his path, which is beautiful. And same thing with the funding, right? He's not the person out there who's hitting the pavement asking for the money, but as the projects show up, so do the funding, right? So he's just literally living his purpose. Family and fun, that's what I just came back from. I love that I can prioritize a life where I can spend the time with my son. I can spend the time with my mother. We were driving through the Adirondacks yesterday. I was, my one goal was to put on my 25-pound weighted vest, AKA my son, and find a peak and climb to the top, right? And that's what I did. But I got to spend a Monday just hanging with my mom and my son. And every Monday is like that. I wake up choosing how to spend my time, choosing where to be and who to spend it with. So, and I live my days in what I call the leaves of my tree, which are wisdom and wonder. That's really easy to do with a 16-month-old, right? He definitely provides the wonder. It's the wonder of ooh, look at this red leaf. Although I'll say I operate like that anyways. I kind of still behave like a child. Sorry. But the wisdom piece, is from having had a little bit of a challenging beginning of life, and a tougher upbringing. And so, you learn lessons quickly, but also not being afraid to fail. I fail forward every day, and the wisdom is what holds me up. And then finally, I have to show you this because this is the part I love the most. So the 2 branches in the center kind of come together to form a heart, and in that heart is growth and giving back. My grandfather told me, if you're not growing, you're dying. So that's one thing I'm committed to every single day is growing myself as a human, new experiences, new lessons, long-term education. I never stop being a student. I'm a student from my son, my team members, everyone around me every day. And then giving back. right? So this is the path I'm on now. I'm committed to starting my own foundation by the end of the year, and just contributing to the causes and concerns that I care about in this lifetime. So those are my values, and as long as I can look at every experience and know that I'm living according to those values, it doesn't violate like one of those things, then I know I'm good, right? And so you have to ask yourself the same thing, like, what are your own values? Do you know what they are? And, if you want help with an exercise like that, I'm here. Reach out. I'm on Facebook. But this weekend, which Jim had talked about earlier, this weekend, these kinds of experiences are really where I get my inspiration from, right? Showing up to something like the 2017 induction to the National Women's Hall of Fame. Thank you so much to Katie McIntyre for asking me to be your guest. Thank you so much to Menzo Case for the table that he had there at Induction Weekend in honor of Generations Bank. I know Menzo and his wife are ambassadors, but Generations is quite a huge sponsor to the event itself. And it was just one of those experiences where you can't imagine what it's like to feel the energy of sitting in a room with these like world-renowned, amazing women with incredible stories. Just to share that energy is something, right? And actually, Jim had a great idea, and it's something we're going to put out there into the universe because it's a wish. It's on our wish list, right? It's in our Amazon wish list. To be able to share this kind of experience with more people. So, Jim, would you share that idea?
Yeah, I've been to several induction ceremonies. We live webcast on fingerlakes1.com the ceremony every other year, because every other year. But it's $150 a plate ticket, I guess, to go in, and there's 75 tables. There's a lot of people, a lot of funds are raised. But I wish that they would pull out the bleachers. They can still have the dinner and everything, but pull out the bleachers on either side of the stage, on either side of where the tables are in the middle.
Could go all the way around, like honoring the original convention in Seneca Falls, right?
And let anybody who maybe you charge $2 a ticket, maybe it's free admission, but let anybody who wants to show up, a father with his two daughters, students at Hobart William Smith or Syracuse University or RIT or whoever wants to show up that couldn't gain access because $150 is a hefty ticket for a college student or for a parent to bring their children. Open it up. Let them come, sit, and hear these great women speak. Because
rub elbows, right?
The folks, and a lot of people are guests of, like with Menzo buying a table and inviting guests, and there were Girl Scouts there. So there were plenty of people that were in a position to be inspired by those speeches. But so many more should be exposed to it, because there are amazing women every year that get inducted, and the speeches are inspiring, and the stories are I'm in awe of some of them, just hearing what some of these folks went through, some of these women went through, and some of the things that they achieved. And so I just think that it should be open to anybody who wants to come watch. And there might be reasons why it isn't that way, but I'd like to see it evolve into something like that.
I think it would be great. And, to think of, and not to be, only focusing on girls, but I think it would be so amazing for so many more young girls to have access to it. Just because you never know what life you're going to touch. You never know how you could change the trajectory of that person's life. And, I just hope that someone out there receives that idea and maybe thinks about that for our next upcoming induction. So thanks, Jim. So last thing I want to leave you with, there were some really incredible stories this weekend, okay? You can imagine if you're being inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame, you've probably got a story to tell. There was a woman there who I've been following since the late 90s, Alice Waters. She's known as the mother of American food and owns a restaurant out in the Bay Area. But she's also the founder of the Edible Schoolyard and all kinds of other amazing projects. And it was just so cool to be in a room with her, right? To get a book from her, signed by her. I know Jim said he was inspired by Temple Grand's story, but you know what? We're not gonna spend the rest of the day sharing the stories for you, because Finger Lakes One TV did live coverage of all their stories. So you can go look them up. You can find them on YouTube and listen to what everyone had to share.
Watch the speeches. The whole webcast is probably an hour and a half long. If you'd like, you can fast forward to each of the 10 speeches. All 10 of the speeches. And 2 of the women were inducted posthumous. How do you say when someone's died? Posthumously?
I forget the word.
Either way, someone else spoke. A granddaughter of one of the inductees spoke in their place, but they're all great speeches. I mean, it's awesome stuff. Yeah. And Temple Grandin was my favorite. She was an autistic. She is an autistic person who actually changed the way that livestock is handled on farms across the world.
Yeah.
And hers, it's pretty interesting and amazing. They all are. Amy Mullins, amputee from below the knees with wears prosthetics, sets world records. She imagined the prosthetics, the cheetah style prosthetics that amputees use now as a standard. Mm-hmm. She was also a Department of Defense analyst at age 17 in the Pentagon. So, and you know,
amazing story.
It is. It's worth a watch. Definitely take a listen if you haven't yet.
90 minutes to change your life. You can't sit down and watch it all at once. Watch 10 minutes a day. Do you know? And that's the last thing I'm going to leave you with is like, what kinds of things do you do to inspire yourself? Right? Do you wait to be inspired, or do you take action? Do you get out there? Do you watch, videos? Do you go meet new people? Do you throw yourself into new experiences? What are you doing out there to inspire yourself? Because it's one life you get to live. It's yours. Love it. Do it. And we'll see you next month. Thanks, everybody.